Hey everybody, welcome to this particular screencast. Today I'm going to show you two resources that I find really helpful. I use them every time that I'm preparing a Bible talk or a Bible study. Really helpful resources that I like to invite into my study to help me to look at the text. Now the particular scenario that I'm in is preparing a study. Let me open my Bible for you. Let's say we're looking at the book of Malachi. I don't know how familiar you are with the book of Malachi. But Malachi is a book that I don't think is taught very much in the local church today. I mean, it's one of the prophets, and you can always tell when it's really hard to find in your Bible. Can you just quickly turn to Malachi? So Malachi, it's a book that I think we ought to recover and ought to teach from nowadays, actually. It's really interesting. Now, one of the big things when you come to teach the Bible is to figure out the structure of the particular book you're looking at. Because once we've got the structure, we can get a bit closer to the meaning of the text. So what I recommend you do to start with is to look at the structure, read through the book over and over again. And once you've done it, you can make notes in your Logos software. I do it using highlights. Here you go. You can see these are my highlights. So this marks the structure, and then this is my point. There you go. You can see some of my notes there. And the idea being that we can just summarize the whole of the book down into here's what happens here, here's what happens here. It's good to do that on your own, but it's also good to ask other people to help you. And the thing with Logos is that we can ask other people to help us, particularly in the form of books. Now, two books I want to show you today. The first one is David Dorsey. Now, David Dorsey wrote a book a while back called The Literary Structure of the Old Testament, a commentary on Genesis to Malachi. Let me open that one up for us. As you can see, it's open to Malachi because that's where I am right now. And David Dorsey, he basically looks at the structure in this book of each of the Bible books in the Old Testament. Really helpful. So you can see there, he's given us the title, Have We Robbed God? An idea that flows all the way through the book of Malachi. And what he does is he analyses familiar structures that other people might use. So here we go. Most scholars, he says here, analyse the book as composed of 6 units plus an appendix. And there's his 6 units that he says most people use. However, through his own study, he comes up with his own structure. Here we go. The book of Malachi, figure 38.2, if you're looking at the book yourself. And what he does is he looks at the book and looks for repeated ideas. He's a very big fan of chiasms, a chiasm being where you get the same idea at the start and the end, similar ideas in the middle, and a turning point right in the centre. And the idea of the chiasm is that you see the centre, something important's happened, we need to know what that is, and it comes to all the way to the end. It's kind of like going up a mountain. You go up the mountain to see the view, and that's the big turning point before you start coming back down, isn't it? But when you get to the bottom, there's the little cafe, and some people will say the cafe is the most important thing of the whole time. Yeah, maybe that's you, maybe that's not. Anyway, here is Dorsey, and he says that the book of Malachi is a chiasm. You'll find with Dorsey that he thinks quite a lot of the books of the Bible are a chiasm. You could even call this book, as some of my friends do, the big book of chiasms. And what he does here is he basically picks up the idea that Yahweh is just. You see that there? Yahweh is just in verses 2 to 5 of chapter 1. And he comes back to that idea again, Yahweh is just, at the end of the book. He then sees that he talks about priests and people cheating Yahweh. And then he gets people who have robbed Yahweh. In the past, Levi served in righteousness. In the future, Yahweh's messenger will come. Not exactly the same. Maybe that's something you want to think more about. But there he sees certain words. So he sees the Hebrew word berit. There, the word for covenant. He sees messenger, repeated word malach. There, he says derek, which is the Hebrew word for the way. He sees those ideas repeated. So he thinks, okay, maybe there's something going on here. And if that's the case, then the centre of the book of Malachi is saying stop being faithless. Now, one thing with Dorsey is he's very big on what the people ought to do. When I'm doing my work, that's not something that I'm as big on. I don't think that's the point of what this book is doing here. But it's interesting because I can now look at what he's done, look at what I've done, compare the two, and solidify in my own mind. Why have I decided to go that way? Maybe Dorsey's seen something I haven't seen. Perhaps I've seen something Dorsey hasn't seen, but it helps to have a conversation, even though he's not in the room. He's in the room in the sense of his book being there. Really helpful. So that is Literary Structure of the Old Testament. If you want to buy that, the link is below this post, so feel free to do that. The other one I want to show you, though, is a book by a guy called Ethelbert Bullinger. Let me type in his name here. I can't spell today. Ethelbert Bullinger. And it's called the Companion Bible. Here you go, you can see it here. Companion Bible being the authorised version of 1611 with structure and notes. Now, this is a very much older version of what Dorsey's trying to do. As you see, it's open to Malachi because that's where I am. Bullinger, he has an idea for the structure, and you can see that there. The structure is a two-parter. First 5 verses about national election, and the last section of the book, national rejection. Quite a different take to what Dorsey was saying, isn't it? So already we've got which one are you going to follow more? As you work your way through, just like Dorsey's book, you get different ideas about the structure that's at play. So his big structure was just there. Here's his smaller structure. And he points out that the words of Jehovah to Israel of his love. And you get Israel's answer. Verse 2 matches up here, doesn't it? Verses 2 and 3, the words of Jehovah to Israel of his love again. And this time, verse 4, you get Edom's answer to it. And again, you get the words of Jehovah to Israel of his love. So he's looking there for the structure of the book. And you get some other notes here, things that he found helpful. I think, if I remember correctly, that Bullinger used to preach from notes like this. And what he did was he collated them all into a book. And now as time's gone on, we've digitized that. The people at Logos have digitized that. So we can see his notes he would have used as he preached. Sometimes there's some really interesting things there, like cross-references, which are really worth looking up. So that's 2 resources that are helpful for structure. As you can see on mine, I have my little filter here that tells me the structure that I have decided I'm going to go with. As you can see probably from my screen, I'm more in line with what Dorsey is saying in terms of structure. But there are things from Bullinger that I have picked up and put there. So what I do is I have this little visual filter I've made myself, marks the beginning of a section. You can see it runs all the way down to verse 14 there. I also add one of these, which is just my notes for how the structure works. Can you see very similar to what Bullinger was saying? Not Bullinger, what Dorsey was saying there. I've basically been able to pick up some of the stuff he said and stick that into my notes. So next time I come along to Malachi, if I'm teaching Malachi and go, there's a structure already started to go along my process. Well, that's 2 resources for you to look at. Perhaps you've got them already. If you've got a Logos package, you might have them already. Or ones you want to pick up. As I said, the links to buy them are below this post. Hopefully that's useful to you. If you find any other useful things whilst doing this, let me know. I'm always interested to learn new tips and tricks. But for now, I'll let you get back to your day. Enjoy.